Alright guys, Scrappy again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Absolute scenes in Burbank today. We went into this event wondering, would it be possible to have 4 majors this season and 4 different winners from the theoretical top 4? So much discussion on this New York Subliners team from start to finish of this season, but just again, when crunch time is coming around, just as they did last year, Subliners turning up to become a real force. So many storylines of this team today, especially the fact that once again, Atlanta FaZe find themselves looking indomitable going into a championship Sunday, and all of a sudden that is not the case when it comes down to the grand finals. What a set of storylines today. Very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. This was the trophy then for Major 4 here. Not exactly as spectacular as we might have seen at some other events so far this season where there was actually a team running the events, but we know how it goes. Charlotte, Carolina, they bottled it, the event in Charlotte, and it was here instead. No fans, not the best viewership, pretty much understandably. Look, OpTic went out of the tournament early on. In terms of championship Sundays and storylines, wasn't exactly the best in terms of what could have happened here. And look, the World Championship qualification spots were effectively already determined earlier on in the weekends. And it is somewhat unfortunate to think about what could have been this event in some ways in terms of, you know, if there was a crowd and all that stuff. But, you know, the CDL doing CDL things. FaZe, by the way, of course, we're certainly going to discuss their series in detail over the coming minutes here, but they confirmed today their participation at the Esports World Cup. This has been a known thing that the teams have been invited. The question is who was going to go. We saw the Ravens confirm they're going to be over there in ReeaL not that long ago. Obviously, Cloud9 have confirmed it with the New York Subliners themselves, and now FaZe are coming through confirming their attendance. Now, I think it was a few days ago the teams had to officially inform the Esports World Cup whether they were going to go or not. But yeah, FaZe are going to be looking to, you know, try and win champs and then try and win the Esports World Cup a few weeks after that. There was, of course, the other big storyline of the day, one of them at least, in terms of who's going to be the MVP of the day. Certainly lots to say on that over the coming days as a result of the results that we have seen today. But, you know, Scrappy arguably out of the race on the result of Toronto, as we are just about to dive into. This Subliners team, obviously we're going to get into their matches, especially when we get down to that grand final. But Toronto's record against New York recently has just not been good at all, actually. They've lost loads of series now in the row to New York. A similar thing actually happened way back at Major 2, was it, when Toronto came top 4, and obviously Drazah was giving Scrappy all the trash talk after the tournament, saying, yeah, this guy, you know, at least meet me in finals, you know, don't go out top 4 before you even get to try and challenge me. But yeah, Toronto, I think really what I wanted to say on this series was conversations to be had on exactly what goes on with these boys come Championship Sunday, at least what can go on. It's not like their record on Sundays are absolutely awful, but it's just there is a tendency for Toronto to get slammed. Like, if they lose, they will often get slammed. Like, and it's happened a lot of times now over the last couple of years, to the point where it's probably more than just a coincidence. Insight and CleanX, I wouldn't say they're the prime culprits necessarily, but, you know, you look at the numbers in terms of their record over the last few years, it does kind of feel that way sometimes. Scrappy, though, was 18 in 27. Like, he went on a big death streak to win the game, but he actually had still lots of damage, to be fair. Simp, though, double positive. 6k damage, 33 in 17. He turned up big time over the last few weeks of the qualifiers, obviously, but, you know, what is this about Ultra? You know, people are saying it is time to start a dialogue. I saw this going around on this Toronto team, because we saw it even, let's just say, okay, Cold War, you can even go back to that team when they got 4-0'd to 5-4'd by the Minnesota Rocker back at that major at the end of that season. But even in recent times, the World Championship last year getting slapped around by Kismet, of course, in the grand finals there, 5-0, whitewash, dominant performance on the other side. Obviously, earlier this season, we literally just had it back at Major 3, where OpTic 4-0 slams them in finals. And then here we are in another day where they turn up to a Sunday and simply just don't perform. And we talk about OpTic lacking momentum going into the World Championship. That is absolutely true of Toronto as well, based on this result. They lost to Gorillas on the first day. They didn't even get a chance to rematch them, right? They lost again to the Subliners here. 16 in 4, though, were Kiz and HyDra. And this is a talking point for Kismet especially. We talked a lot about this New York Subliners team, especially at the start of the season. They make that controversial change for Priestahh. They don't look as good with Sib on the lineup. But then again, last year, they were very up and down. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe, you know, something else, right? Not so good, shall we say. And to be honest, to me, it wasn't even, it was on Sib a little bit. But over the last few weeks, Sib has absolutely turned it around. The question has been, what about Kiz, right? Because Kiz has not been this year the player that he was last season. Let's be honest, that Kiz and HyDra SMG duo was, you know, not exactly dominating the Tiny Terrors, but they were certainly up there in the conversation with the Tiny Terrors when it came down to a significant portion of last season. season. This year, Kiz, you know, there's talk about red dots, there's talk about 150 HP, this type of stuff that has, well, not been maybe as good for Kismet or whatever you want to say. I also feel like for some time for Kiz, it was a bit of a confidence thing. You know, there was talk, certainly, just looking at his personality, his body language, stuff like this, didn't seem to be quite the bulldog that we remember from certainly the end of last season. But Kiz was actually piping up a bit of trash here, right? This is what I wanted to share when Scrappy was getting trash talked by HyDra. And it's funny how it works, isn't it, right? Like, Scrappy's going to talk trash, he's going to chirp, and then sometimes you're going to get humbled. That's how it goes. That happened today. So I'll share a couple of these clips as the series effectively comes to a conclusion.
I was tweaking. I thought we kept B first, so I was still winning. Are you guys lagging out, bro? I'm like, shit. I'm scared like that.
This elimination matchup, Ultra stunned, New York Subliners smiling.
Yeah, Ultra getting snuffed out so far in this.
Scrappy, of course, has to respond and just says, yeah, got railed by those guys. GG's New York, see you all in 2 weeks. So that's the big thing still for these teams. The World Championship is the be-all and the end-all. But again, when you don't do the results you want, let's say, at the event before champs, historically, the team that wins or comes second at the event before the World Championship is highly likely to do so again come the World Championship. Momentum is a real thing, and confidence is a real thing. And this is one of those series that will make Scrappy think, absolutely, wow, how come this has happened again? And it's not like Scrap was immune from getting slapped, because he also got destroyed this series. But I don't think Scrappy is responsible for what seems to be a consistent trend with Ultra, even pre-Scrappy, to be fair, when they would occasionally turn up and just get bodied on a Sunday. And that's what's happened here. Like, it was a 3-0 smoke show, not even close. You know, Los Angeles Gorillas put up a significantly better fight against New York than Toronto Ultra did. And it was literally 0.7s across the board, which you're not going to see every day. Well, I guess New York played some phenomenal COD today, but this is just absolutely unacceptable, and they've got to wonder how, especially given it was honestly a similar thing at last year's World Championship Grand Final with a pretty similar setup with Kismet absolutely running them over, and now it's kind of happened again basically a year later as it comes down to crunch time. So lots to say, I'm sure, on Toronto over the coming days, but let's talk about Los Angeles Gorillas, because as I say, they were competitive. They put up a fight here in this series, and I thought that they would. Genuinely a solid team. But my concern was for Gorillas when they come up against a team that not only has the teamwork, but also has the firepower, then it's going to be more of a challenge, right? Because, you know, the talent is clearly there. You look at Estriel's ace that he gets here. They're already down 1-0 at this point, but, you know, they actually went up 5-2 in this map. This was one that Gorillas will want back. Would they have beaten FaZe? It's maybe doubtful, but this is one of those rounds you can't really afford to lose, especially, okay, one of those maps you can't afford to lose. Up 5-2, goes 5-5, and Drazah eventually finds himself in, well, as we'll see in a second here, 1 versus 2, gets both kills, and closes out the round 11 to get the job done. So a brutal way to lose, really, this game 2 here for the Los Angeles Gorillas, and after that it was relatively clean cut. FaZe take the series. GG's, Los Angeles Gorillas down to the losers bracket, and FaZe get it done in 3, again winning every single map up to this point in the entire tournament. FaZe get it done in 3. And Simp, by the way, going into the grand finals, was sitting at a casual 1.41 KD. Only 2 events ever, both at Vegas 2019, where a player had had more than a 1.40. To be honest, I thought Formal had like a 1.44 or something at the World Championship in 2017, but look, regardless, anything in the 1.4 range is ridiculous. It usually only happens with AR players as well, as we can see. Okay, it's actually mentioned in the replies. Okay, yeah, 1.36 maybe. Yeah, including pool play, I think it's maybe a 1.44, but yeah, so maybe that explains that. But nonetheless, usually it's ARs. For Simp to be even in that conversation going into the grand finals was pretty epic. But you've got to give credit to Los Angeles Gorillas, right? Yes, they got out of the tournament, but the way that they competed this tournament, right? For Gorillas fans, if there are any, and fair play, because I know there are some out there and they don't get much, not much to cheer for as a Gorillas fan over the last couple of years, but have come in here, they've come top 3, they've qualified for the World Championship, they have arguably one of the first round games you would want. I mean, they're playing OpTic round 1 at champs. We're going to talk about that, of course, tomorrow, but that is right now a game that you wouldn't mind, let's be real, given the way things currently are. So yeah, Kismet on ReeaL hardpoint, he was cooking 29 in 20 against Gorillas. This was crazy though, like literally Kismet arrived, and we talked about this, 99 Kiz, is he going to turn up? All the talk about the Bulldog, and you can see the confidence, I think, in his play here, and when he's playing confidence, he is undoubtedly a scary player. Like, this guy's a world champion for a very good reason, and finally, this season we saw it today. Whether there is talk about the fact that it's a no-fan LAN, right? And Kismet seems to like these. You know, we've seen it kind of happen before with the New York Subliners when they won the Prem a couple of years ago. As I say, maybe it is in part a confidence, a pressure, whatever situation for Kiz, but in these type of environments, he does seem to thrive. Whether he can replicate that at Champs is now going to be the key question that many are asking. Fame, though, by the way, yes, this game got reset, but he finds himself in a 1 versus 4 and just straight clutches it up. We haven't even seen one of these this season. It straight up happens here. Fame was absolutely roaring as a result, but fair play to Subliners. They keep their composure. They're always good, Subliners, from like a mentality perspective. They're very well drilled. They coaching staff is excellent, and they get the job done and close out the series and go to a grand final. So look, we talk about the Subliners this season. Would they make a finals? Would they be able to be competitive? What could they do against a team like FaZe, for example? And HyDra, again, for the first 4 years in a row, he's now made a grand final every single year. And look, we talked about Kismet, but HyDra deserves so much credit as well. Like, this guy was out of control. Honestly, in the entire losers bracket, his numbers were frankly absurd. And, you know, again, it's funny, we talk about Kiz and Sib, really, and Skyz was a lot of the time along for the ride, dropping not many numbers in either category, but I guess, you know, soaking the hill time and doing his job with the rest of the boys absolutely slaying out. And sometimes, because we talk about Kiz and Sibs turning up, you kind of, sometimes HyDra even flies under the radar with just how good and consistent he is. So here we have it, then the grand finals gets underway. They lock the doors for some reason. I guess they were just trying to make it a little bit more dramatic or whatever going into this championship Sunday, because look, this would have been a great series to have fans in the venue, right? It would have been one of those that had been leveled up to an extreme extent if that was the case. But you know, the question really was, FaZe had gone into this series not losing a map in the entire tournament. They literally had 3-0'd every single series so far, including, let's not forget, Subliners themselves back on the first day. That series was not even close. They blew them out of the water. But again, you'll find that we have this losers bracket start, which goes strong for the Subliners, and then FaZe on the championship Sunday. Like, how many times are we going to talk about this? And like, I've talked about my kind of theories about this in the past, and let's be honest, again, Subliners played the better COD of the day, and they beat FaZe in finals. But it's like, how many times have we talked about this with FaZe, where it doesn't really matter who they play in the finals. For some reason, they always tend to find a way to fall short. And it's happened again, right? I mean, this FaZe team looked so good at some point, and even during the tournament, they looked so good at some point. But again, they turn up to the finals, and it's not the result they want. Now, like, the World Championship, the Esports World Cup could be a different story, but Subliners, they draw first blood. HyDra then says, if we win map 2, I swear to God, I'm going to game chat, because at this point, Subliners had won so many maps in a row, they were looking basically unstoppable. And then FaZe won the map too. So FaZe bounced back, and this is what they always do. Like, I don't know how many times I've seen this story where FaZe make it finals, they maybe look a bit shaky early on because they've come from winners, FaZe, the other teams come from losers, maybe lacking momentum, whatever, warm-up scrims, all this stuff. But then FaZe will bring it back. They'll look solid, they'll have, you know, found their feet in the grand finals, whatever. And then they win the control as well. FaZe got 3 kills in the first round. They got completely crushed. Like, Subliners were playing such like piercing Call of Duty that FaZe couldn't handle it round 1, and then FaZe just blew them out on the next 3 rounds. So FaZe were looking really good at this point. They'd bounced back, they'd halted the Subliners momentum, and it looked like, okay, wow, you know, New York have had their time. But, you know, FaZe are here to play now as the pre-championship Sunday favourites. And then moments like this where Simp just comes and completely destroys Caesar, Skyz, Bueno, and eventually FaZe take the game 3. It looks like, at this point, FaZe were going to potentially run away with it, win a comfortable series, but no. They go to a Rio hardpoint, and this is where Subliners take the lead. This, I think, is interesting, right? As the comm says, FaZe listen in, can't hear a single word that Cell is saying. And I've made this point before that if there's only one weakness that FaZe have, I think it is their communication. Against the OpTics when they're on point, against even the Los Angeles Thieves, let's say, of last season, and certainly against teams like Toronto and even, I think, New York, I don't think FaZe's comms are as strong. I don't think their players, in terms of being good communicators and leaders in the comms, are as strong. And I think Drazah has maybe helped that in some parts, but I don't think massively. I think, frankly, Simp, aBeZy and Cell still have relatively middle-of-the-pack comms in the league compared to some of their counterparts. And I don't know. The only theory that I can come up with for why this keeps happening in finals is that is some problem there that affects them when there's, you know, real big pressure moments in a finals or whatever, when the intensity is really high. But I thought, to be honest, even though I think that is a bit of a weakness for FaZe, there's no crowd here, right? So I thought that would not affect them as much. So maybe that's not the reason. Maybe they're just chokers in finals, or maybe they just keep running running into teams that are better than in grand finals. I don't really get it. And Subliners played phenomenal COD, and honestly, like, I'm happy with the way this result turned out, because it just means that FaZe again, Subliners again, OpTic and Toronto over the course of the season have won 4 events now between the 4 teams, and that just makes things so damn interesting going into the World Championship. Subliners eventually, they take the Karachi search, and then they win a very impressive invasion control here. This was, like, Skyz didn't do that much all day, turns up to this, pops a massive 3-piece, wins the round for his team, and on the weekend where Cloud9 announced their buyout effectively of this team, they make a disgusting losers bracket run from losers round 1, and they go on to win the entire thing. So wow, what a day of Call of Duty, so many storylines to discuss. Simp had 124 kills, HyDra had 125, and Kiz had 119 as well. You know, crazy tournament. I wish it was on LAN. It is what it is. The storylines are mega. We're going to discuss so many of them over the coming days. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.